So in this video, we'll have a look on how can we then take our existing ACE, which we built using a SharePoint framework and adaptive card technologies, and deploy that to production. And as this is a SharePoint framework solution, it is actually surprisingly easy. So I call out a few things here, which are hopefully not confusing, but the settings which are controlling how things are actually working. So first of all, by default, in our packaging solution, we actually have this magical setting enabled by default, which include client-side assets. And this actually controls the packaging logic. So as we want to have all of the output JavaScript from the transcompiled TypeScript inside of our solution package, in this case, for a simplified deployment, the true setting here basically gives that option for us. And that means that as part of the SPPKG file, which is then ready to be deployed into production, we'll have the JavaScript files and image assets and all of the other assets as well, which then enables that package to be sent to any tenant within the world, and it will work in the same way. So the simplicity of the deployment in production is nothing more than actually packaging everything in the solution and then having that assets available through the solution to be used in any tenant within the world. So the setting is this one, to include client-side assets, which is true by default, but in some cases, it might be good to double check that is actually true. Now, there are alternative options that could be false if you would want to actually host these JavaScript assets directly in CDN from Azure CDN as an example, which is an option. That would be the reason to put this in a false, but by default, certainly not needed. And now if we then go and have a look on our code, so we haven't actually changed any code in here. This is a completely default ACE extension, so we're not going to do any modification there because we don't actually need to modify the code or prepare the code anyway for production usage. Of course, we would need to it would be recommended to update some of the developer settings and all of the URLs and all of that sort of descriptions so that the information is correct as you start preparing production usage on the solution level. But let's do the packaging and automation in here. So first of all, we are in our development environment. I'm going to use the development tenant for production tenant Mimic, but let's use it in a way that we would use it in a real production world. So that means that I cannot really use the deploy solution and I cannot really access most likely the app catalog because in many cases, the developer is not the tenant administrator and the developer does not have the right permissions to take the solution into use in a production tenant. So how this works is that we basically bundle the ready-to-be-used ready-to-be-used solution in production mode. And behind the scenes, the command is gulp bundle --ship, and that basically does the transcompiling and creation of the solution packages to be done in place. So you can see a webpack being executed in here, and that creates the bundle to be ready to be used in production level. So it's optimized for production level. And then the second thing here is that we want to use the package production, and that actually prepares the SPPKG file. An SPPKG file is then the solution package file, which we can take into account or we can share with our customers or take that into deployment within the production. That's although, by the way, also the same package if you are a partner and want to offer your ACEs through the Partner Center and App Source and SharePoint Store and Viva Connection Store, and that is exactly the same package which would be submitting there as well. Now let's actually open the package. So let's go to this folder, and we can actually see the folder in the file system here as well. So if I extend the SharePoint folder, we can see the SPPKG file in here. And this is the file which is now ready to be used in production in any tenant within the world. And as inside of that file, we have all of the assets, it will just magically work. Now, the key point to understand here is that the debug folder actually contains what's inside of the SPPKG file. It is actually a zip file, so it's an OpenXML file which contains a lot of different assets. And if we start extracting, for example, the debug folder to see what's inside of the files, we can see that there are JavaScript files and there's the code files and definition files, which are actually the code behind the scenes, which is getting executed whenever the ACE is getting rendered. So this is, for example, the optimized JavaScript file, then to be ready to be used in production view. The additional files here are mainly for introduction files, so they are XML files to introduce the component types, the component title, and all of that within a production usage. But let's have a look on this in practice. So, okay, so we have now the file. How would I deploy that in a production tenant? First of all, we need to access the file. So let's actually click that one and say reveal in File Explorer. And let's go to the SharePoint folder and solution folder. There we go. And there's my SPPKG file. It's pretty small now. Let's see if I can actually, yes, I can bit zoom that out. So I can actually see that the SPPKG file is the file. That's the one which we will deploy to the production tenant, whatever the tenant is. In my case, I will actually use the same tenant because it doesn't really technically matter. The steps are exactly the same. So now if I go to my app catalog, let me actually copy the URL from here, and then let's actually do that from here. So let me go to my tenant, and then let's go to the admin UI. And then we open up the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. Bit of a confusing piece. The ACs, Viva Connection solutions, are still being deployed through a SharePoint app catalog for now, which is a bit of a confusing thing, but let's see how that's going to work in the future. If I open up the SharePoint Admin Center, and now from here, we can then see advanced settings. No, more features. Yes, it is. And from here, I can actually see the apps settings. And there we go. We are now in the app catalog of this particular tenant. And this is where we will be deploying our solution and SPPKG file, either using the upload option or simply drag and dropping the file directly from the file system to that particular location. And that's going to then start the upload operation in a tenant. And then a super important options, let me zoom this a bit. As a tenant administrator in the production tenant, of course, the tenant administrator needs to understand what are they deploying and what's actually getting deployed before, so that they can approve the usage. Few settings here. We can see that it's actually data is getting from SharePoint. That means that the solution is automatically getting hosted by SharePoint behind the scenes, and no reason to host anything in Azure or AWS or anywhere else, which is a really cool advanced option or advantage with the SPFX. And then we are going to have this app available in all sites. That is a technical option as well, so you can isolate the solutions to be available only in specific sites. Let's see, the solution name is my ACE client-side solution. It is actually that one on the top of the list, and I can enable the app to be now available within a tenant. It is now available. We can close. And now that means that if I go back to my tenant dashboard, and if I go to my dashboard in here, and I edit my dashboard, we can actually see that new ACE to be available underneath probably my ACE. There we go. And there's my ACE, which is available, and it's rendered in properly, even though we're not running the local host within our machine. So again, production ready, automatically hosted within the app catalog. So making it super, super easy to be used efficiently within, well, super, super easy to be distributed efficiently across the tenants. But that's all we're going to use do within this video. Hopefully that clarifies the packaging process for SharePoint Framework solution. Thank you.